Welcome to Zoe Stories. I lost at poker. Now I have to dress like a woman every day. The first thing I remember about that night is the smell. Stale beer, cheap cologne, the metallic tang of casino chips. I can still hear the clack of cards against felt, the low hum of men pretending not to care, and the laugh that finally did me in, the kind of laugh that says you're already a step behind. My name is Alex. I work in user experience design by day, drawing neat lines and predictable flows for apps people use without thinking. By night, in the soft private hours when the apartment is quiet and the streetlights carve long shadows across the floor, I am someone else. Call it a hobby. Call it an indulgence. At 32, I learned how to keep two versions of myself, the tidy, efficient product designer everyone at work knows, and the thinner, softer person who lives under my bed in a shoebox of silk dresses and borrowed mascara. I had found that other self by accident, in the privacy of my own bathroom, standing under the warm light and tracing the curve of my cheek with a brush. The first time I squeezed into a dress and walked across the living room in heels, my knees shook for reasons that had nothing to do with instability. It was a tiny revelation, a private thrill that made the air taste different for a few stolen hours. I didn't tell anyone. Not my mother, who still thinks pink shirts are a scandal. Not my brother, who guesses wrong about everything and thinks secrets solve themselves with time. Most of all, not Isabella. Isabella is everything I am not. Loud, precise, and spectacularly fashionable. She works in PR and moves through the world like she was cast in bright light. We've been together 2 years. She loves me fiercely in the way that makes me feel safer and smaller at the same time. Protective, proud, and slightly on display. She thinks she knows me. She knows the dinners I prefer, the podcast I can't stop recommending, and the exact way I press my thumb to the side of a mug when I'm nervous. She does not know about the dresses. Our apartment is the kind of place that could be on a design blog. White walls, a couch that is more aesthetic than comfortable, a small balcony where she insists the succulents thrive. It's cozy enough that privacy feels like a borrowed thing. That's important because my secret depends on quiet. A late-night ritual of selecting an outfit, smoothing stockings over my calves, and learning how to walk on heels that felt like foreign currency to my feet. In the mirror, I practiced expressions like lines for a role I never admitted rehearsing. I learned to soften my voice, to lift my chin when laughter arrived so it would look effortless. It was practice in becoming another person, and in claiming a small island of joy. There was shame at first. The kind that sits in your stomach when you think someone might see through your carefully composed exterior. But there was also a bright, almost childish delight. A private jubilee where I could be honest with myself in a way daylight never allowed. I had rules. Never leave evidence, always be ready to switch back to Alex before the kettle boiled, and never, under any circumstances, let Isabella discover what made me feel this alive. Rules are a fragile sort of armor. My job helped. Designers have late nights, odd schedules, and a never-ending parade of deadlines. I could justify the time away from home, a client dinner here, an after-work brainstorm there. Those were the nights when I slipped into a cafe restroom, adjusted a wig, and walked the long way home so no one would recognize the rhythm in my step. Those nights felt reckless and safe at the same time. Even with the rules, the secret lived in the thin spaces. An empty drawer where makeup sat, the dryer cycle time to cover the click of heels, the excuse about being stuck at work when I was really getting ready in a bathroom 5 blocks away. I told myself that it was harmless, a private life, a performance, but secrets breed other things. Tension, the constant inventory of what would happen if someone opened the wrong cupboard or lingered too long in the hallway. Isabella and I have a complicated tenderness. She adores surprise and control in equal measures. She plans birthdays like a commander marshals troops. She tells me I'm stubborn in the most exasperated, affectionate way and insists I eat breakfast every morning. She is the reason I have curtains that match and a coffee machine I don't know how to use properly. We fought only rarely, and always about small things. A missed message, a dress left on a chair, and then we made up over wine and a shared laugh that made the apartment feel new again. That made the idea of being found out feel impossible. Not because I didn't deserve to be honest, but because I feared breaking the picture. The way she looks at me across a crowded room, how she introduces me to her friends with a pride that feels like sunlight. If she saw me in one of my dresses, in my careful makeup and my heels, would she laugh and fold it into a memory? Would she feel betrayed? Or worse, would she recoil, and everything we built together collapse like a map torn in two? So the secret stayed private. It was mine. It was also ridiculous how much of my life circled around it. the wardrobe choices I made, the way I kept my suitcase ready with an emergency pair of flats. Little rituals became big fences. I stopped inviting her to certain events, avoided family dinners at her parents' when I had plans, and learned to count the hours until morning like a stopwatch. It was exhausting, but it was also, I admit, intoxicating. To hold two selves at once felt dangerous and honest in the same breath. And then there was the poker night. It started as a bet. A stupid hair-on-fire bet that would never have mattered if the night had gone differently. I, who had always prided myself on self-control, let a mix of bravado and a couple of drinks push me into a wager I should have walked away from. The men around the table weren't cruel. They were bored. They were loud. They were the kind of people who measure worth in chips and the rise of a taped grin. I thought it would be funny, an anecdote to tuck into the evening like a secret talisman. I thought I knew the rules. I lost. Badly. The terms were ridiculous. They were meant to humiliate but also to entertain. Dress like a woman every day for 1 month. Wear it at home, wear it to the shop, wear it in the light. No exceptions. Pay for any dry cleaning. Do a daily walk in public in heels. The laughter that followed signing the paper. Yes, there was an actual paper. Who carries a paper in the middle of a gamble? Sounded like slaps. I laughed with them then, because what else do you do when you've just handed someone your own embarrassment on a clay platter? On the walk home, the city lights threw a different kind of shadow across my face. I kept thinking of Isabella asleep in our apartment, the soft exhale that meant she trusted me enough to close her eyes. The bet was absurd. The bet was private. The bet could be a story withheld. But some small, reckless part of me, the part that loved the other self and the thrill of being found out only when I chose to be, saw it as a kind of test. Would I be brave enough to live publicly what I had kept hidden privately? Or was I simply setting the stage for some catastrophic, comedic reveal? There is a split second in every choice where the world tilts and the voice inside you either whispers yes or shakes its head. When I climbed the stairs and opened the door to our apartment, I paused. The familiar click of the lock felt different. I could already see in my mind's eye the neat life we had arranged together. Photographs, takeout menus, the lipstick stain on her mug from 3 Saturdays ago. I could imagine, too, the way the bet would unravel those threads or sew them into something new. I told myself one more rule, then, tonight, I will test the water. I would not go out. I would not tell her. I would simply become the other person in the safety of our living room, and see how the air changed. Maybe that would be enough. Maybe it would be the end of the danger and the beginning of something I couldn't name. When I closed the door behind me and slid into the silence, I did not know how high the stakes would climb. I did not know that a wig and a pair of heels could be the fulcrum of everything I feared and everything I wanted. But for the first time since I learned the shape of my own secret, the private and the public began to press against each other in a way that would not stay politely separated for long. The apartment was dark when I stepped inside, the only light coming from the digital clock glowing on the kitchen counter. 11:47 p.m. Isabella's shoes were neatly lined by the door, her purse slung over the chair, and the faint scent of her perfume still hung in the air. She was asleep. That should have been a relief. But tonight, it felt like standing at the edge of a confession I wasn't ready to make. I closed the door softly behind me and leaned against it, my heart pounding harder than it should have. My mind replayed the laughter from the poker table, the mocking applause, the words still echoing in my head. 1 month, Alex. Every day. No excuses. They thought it was a joke. Hell, maybe it was. But I had signed the damn paper, and for reasons I couldn't quite explain, part of me wanted to see it through. I walked toward the bedroom door, cracked it open slightly, and peeked inside. Isabella lay curled up on her side, the blanket rising and falling gently with her breath. She looked peaceful, her dark hair spilling across the pillow, her arm tucked under her cheek, lips parted slightly. The sight should have grounded me, but instead it made my throat tighten. If she ever saw me the way I was about to become, would she even recognize me? I stood there for a long time, the silence humming around me. Then I turned toward the closet. The small locked box sat behind a stack of old shoes. My private world. My fingers hesitated on the latch. I could hear every second ticking in my chest, each one daring me to back out. But something about tonight felt different. It wasn't just the stupid bet. It was the feeling that I had crossed some invisible line, and there was no turning back. I opened the box. Inside lay my collection. Modest, hidden, but sacred. A soft cream blouse, a pleated skirt that shimmered under the light, sheer stockings folded neatly beside a pair of black heels. At the bottom sat a small bag of makeup. Foundation, blush, lipstick, mascara. I had built it all over months of quiet courage. A secret identity I only dared visit when the world slept. I laid everything out carefully on the bed, the way a soldier might prepare armor. My hands trembled slightly as I undressed, piece by piece. The air felt cooler against my skin. When I slipped on the stockings, that familiar rush hit me again. A mix of fear, thrill, and something deeper I could never quite name. My reflection in the mirror started to change, but my heartbeat refused to calm. I applied the makeup slowly. The soft drag of the brush across my cheek felt grounding, meditative. A little concealer under the eyes, a faint shimmer of blush. I drew the lipstick carefully, and for a moment, it wasn't about hiding. It was about becoming. When I fastened the skirt around my waist and buttoned the blouse, my posture changed without me realizing it. My shoulders relaxed. My movements softened. The person in the mirror wasn't Alex anymore. Not entirely. And yet, the moment wasn't freeing. It was terrifying. Because tonight wasn't a private game anymore. It was the start of a bet that could expose everything. If Isabella woke up now, it would all be over. If anyone found out, the humiliation would be endless. I turned off the main light and stood under the soft glow of the lamp. My breath came in shallow bursts. I walked, carefully, deliberately, across the floor, the click of heels echoing in the stillness. Every sound felt magnified. The creak of the floorboard, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint rustle of fabric. My nerves were electric. My body trembled between fear and exhilaration. I stopped in front of the mirror again. For a second, I didn't see a disguise. I saw possibility. The version of myself that had been hiding for too long. The curve of my face, the way the skirt brushed my knees, the tiny smile that formed unbidden. It wasn't perfect, but it was me. And for the first time, I wondered if this bet, ridiculous as it was, might force me to face what I'd been avoiding all along. A soft noise behind me snapped me out of the moment. The sound came from the bedroom, the shift of a blanket, the faint creak of the bed. My blood turned to ice. I froze, every muscle tight. Please don't wake up. Please not now. I stood motionless, barely breathing, listening to the rhythm of her movements. Then, silence. I let out a slow breath. My reflection in the mirror looked terrified and alive all at once. My pulse was still racing when I realized I had been clutching the edge of the vanity so hard my knuckles were white. The clock read 12:16 a.m. The first night had begun. I sat on the couch, hugging my knees, the skirt pooling around me. My mind kept flicking between panic and wonder. Tomorrow the real test would start. The bet required me to go outside, to live like this in the open. I couldn't imagine it. How could I walk down the street like this? How could I look anyone in the eye? And yet, a whisper inside me said, "You've already taken the first step." I touched my reflection one last time before wiping off the makeup, folding the clothes neatly, and hiding them away again. But even after changing back into my t-shirt and shorts, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had shifted. Like I had woken something that refused to go back to sleep. That night, as I lay beside Isabella, I stared at the ceiling, the glow from the streetlights painting lines across our room. She turned in her sleep, her hand brushing against mine, and for a moment, I thought I could still feel the ghost of the lipstick on my lips. My chest ached with something that wasn't guilt exactly. More like anticipation. Tomorrow the bet would begin. And I didn't know if I was more afraid of losing myself, or finding out who I really was. The morning sun cut through the blinds too sharply, dragging me back into reality. Isabella was already in the kitchen. I could hear the faint hum of the coffee machine, her usual ritual. My heart skipped. The bet wasn't just a memory anymore. Today it started. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of it. 1 month. 30 days of pretending to be someone else. Except it wasn't exactly pretending, was it? That was what scared me most, that it might start to feel too natural. "Alex." Isabella called from the kitchen. "You're up late. Big day." Her voice jolted me into motion. "Yeah, kinda," I muttered, hoping she couldn't hear the tremor in my tone. I swung my legs off the bed and sat there, feeling the familiar tug of war in my chest, the dread of being caught and the secret thrill of what was about to happen. I glanced at the closet. Inside that box lay my other self, waiting. When Isabella left for work, the apartment fell silent again. I waited a full 10 minutes after the door clicked shut before moving. My pulse quickened as I pulled the box out from its hiding place. The clothes felt heavier this time. Not just fabric, but responsibility. I'd promised the poker group that I'd send proof every day. A photo showing I'd followed the rules. It was supposed to be humiliating, a joke. But as I laid the outfit on the bed, a soft lavender top, a simple skirt, and a wig that shimmered faintly in the light, I realized humiliation wasn't what I felt. It was freedom and terror. As I began dressing, each piece felt like a step deeper into another world. The stockings slid up my legs with a whisper. The skirt settled around my waist, light and smooth. When I put on the wig, the weight of the hair made me stand differently. A little taller, a little more careful. Then came the makeup. My hands shook as I worked the brush over my face. The smell of foundation, the faint chemical sweetness of lipstick. It all triggered memories of late nights in secret, but this time, there was no safety net. I stared into the mirror. The person looking back wasn't Alex. Not exactly. The soft features, the faint blush, the hesitant smile. It was like seeing a stranger wearing my soul. And that stranger had to go outside. My hands were trembling when I reached for my phone. I snapped a quick picture. Head tilted, soft lighting. Just enough proof to satisfy the poker group. Then I turned toward the door. The first step out was the hardest. The hallway outside our apartment felt enormous. Too bright. My heels clicked against the floor like gunshots. Every sound seemed amplified. My brain whispered, "Someone will see you, someone will laugh, someone will know." I took the stairs slowly, heart hammering. When I reached the lobby, I nearly turned back. A man was checking his mail. Tall, probably in his 40s, wearing a hoodie. He looked up briefly, and my lungs froze. Our eyes met for the smallest second. Then he looked away without a word. That was it. No laughter. No judgment. Just a passing glance. Another stranger in a world full of them. But that moment changed something. I realized how much I'd been carrying. This belief that the world would fall apart the instant it saw me. Yet nothing happened. The earth didn't shatter. The air didn't change. I was still standing. I stepped outside. The morning air was cold and crisp. Cars passed. People moved with purpose. To work, to school, to lives that had nothing to do with mine. I walked to the small park near our street, pretending to scroll through my phone, trying to look casual. Every step in those heels felt like balancing on glass, but beneath the fear was something else. A quiet, dangerous sense of peace. I could breathe. I sat on a bench near the fountain, pulling my hair forward to hide my face. My pulse slowed as I watched the rippling water. For a few minutes, I let myself just exist. No lies, no fear, no Alex, no Isabella. Just this version of me who wasn't ashamed of how it felt to be seen this way. The vibration of my phone shattered the calm. A message from Isabella. "Hey babe, I might come home early today." The meeting got cancelled. Lunch together. My stomach dropped. I'd only been outside for 20 minutes, but my mind went blank with panic. I had makeup on. My nails painted. The wig pinned in place. I'd never make it home in time to change if she left right away. I grabbed my bag and started walking fast. Too fast. My heels clicked unevenly on the pavement. Every second felt like a countdown. I reached the corner and hailed a cab, ignoring the driver's curious glance. Pine Avenue please," I said, trying to sound casual. The ride was a blur. My hands fidgeted in my lap, clutching the hem of my skirt. I kept imagining the door opening to Isabella's shocked face, her voice saying my name in that slow, broken way that means she doesn't recognize you anymore. By the time I reached the apartment building, my palms were slick with sweat. I rushed up the stairs 2 at a time, heels clattering like thunder. I fumbled with the keys, nearly dropping them. Then I froze. Her shoes were still by the door. My pulse eased. She wasn't home yet. I slipped inside, locked the door behind me, and collapsed against it, gasping for breath. My reflection in the mirror across the hall was wild. Hair askew, lipstick smudged, but eyes alive. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The adrenaline pulsed through me, mixing with something I didn't expect. Exhilaration. I'd been seen. I'd walked outside in daylight, as someone else, and the world hadn't ended. But then the weight of the next message came through. Leaving now. Be there in 15 minutes. Panic snapped me back into motion. I rushed into the bathroom, scrubbing my face, yanking off the wig, nearly tripping as I changed. The stockings tore in my haste. The water ran pink with lipstick. By the time I'd thrown everything back into the box and shoved it into the closet, the front door opened. Isabella's voice echoed softly through the hallway. Alex? You home? I forced a smile and stepped out, still breathing hard. Yeah, just finished cleaning up a bit. She smiled and kissed my cheek, and for the first time, I wondered if she could smell the faint trace of perfume I'd forgotten to wash off. Morning light leaked through the blinds, carving gold lines across my unfamiliar reflection. The makeup had smeared, the wig was slightly crooked, but there was no denying it. The face staring back wasn't Alex anymore. It was her. For a long time, I just stood there, frozen, the silence of my apartment louder than any sound. The poker bet had been a joke, one wild night to laugh about later. But now, I couldn't laugh. I didn't even know if I wanted to. When my phone buzzed, I jumped. Isabella. Don't be late. We're meeting the others at noon. I typed, erased, and typed again. Me. Do I really have to? Isabella. A bet's a bet, sweetheart. Besides, you look amazing. Sweetheart. The word hit me like static. Part insult, part invitation. My pulse picked up. Somewhere deep down, beneath the fear and humiliation, there was a small, reckless curiosity. What if I just go along? I spent the next hour trying to fix my appearance. Every stroke of eyeliner, every brush of blush made my hands tremble, but the transformation slowly sharpened. The face in the mirror wasn't a man pretending anymore. It was a girl trying to be perfect. When I finally stepped outside, sunlight kissed my skin, and the city looked different. Sharper, louder, as if everyone's eyes were on me. A group of guys laughed near the corner, and my stomach twisted. Were they laughing at me? I forced myself to walk. One heel in front of the other. My hips swayed without meaning to. A car horn blared, and a man leaned out the window to whistle. Looking good, baby. I froze. For a split second, anger surged. Then something stranger followed. A nervous flutter. My cheeks burned, but not entirely from shame. I hated that feeling. I hated that I didn't hate it enough. Isabella was waiting at the cafe, radiant in her casual summer dress, sipping iced coffee like she owned the world. When she saw me, her grin widened. Oh, my God. Alex? Or should I say Alexa? Please don't, I muttered, sliding into the seat. But the name lingered between us. Heavy and dangerous. Relax, she said. You look incredible. You just need confidence. Confidence to humiliate myself? Confidence to see who you really are. Her words unsettled me. Before I could reply, she waved at the waiter. 2 lattes, please. For me and her. The pronoun made my pulse stutter. Every second felt like an exposed nerve. The waiter's polite smile, the curious glances from nearby tables, even the sound of my own voice, softer and breathier than usual. I wanted to disappear. Yet part of me didn't. Halfway through the coffee, Isabella leaned forward. You could actually pass, you know. Stop. I'm serious. You've got the bone structure, the eyes. I bet most people wouldn't even question it. Her tone was teasing, but something in her gaze wasn't. It was studying me, measuring me, like I was a project she had started and couldn't wait to finish. When we walked out, she pulled me toward a nearby boutique. Come on, just try something that actually fits your figure. Inside, racks of dresses surrounded me, waves of color and fabric whispering against each other. I wanted to bolt. But Isabella was relentless, handing me outfit after outfit, watching me with that sly satisfaction. When I stepped out of the fitting room wearing a pale pink dress that hugged every curve the padding created, the world seemed to hold its breath. Wow, she whispered. You look perfect. I looked in the mirror again. The reflection wasn't a parody anymore. It was believable. Real. A stranger who smiled back timidly, shy but beautiful. And for the first time, I didn't feel like Alex trapped in a costume. I felt like her. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of small humiliations and strange delights. Compliments from strangers, selfies Isabella insisted we take, laughter that felt lighter than it should have. But under it all was an unease I couldn't shake. When I finally got home, I kicked off the heels and collapsed onto the couch. My phone pinged again. Isabella, you did amazing today. Proud of you. Isabella, tomorrow, let's see how far you can really go. Tomorrow? My heart thudded. This wasn't supposed to continue. I typed back quickly. No more. Bet's over. Then deleted it. I didn't send anything. Because deep down, part of me wondered what how far really meant. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again. My wig lay beside the sink, my lips still faintly pink from lipstick I couldn't quite scrub off. My chest rose and fell slowly as I whispered the word that had haunted me all day. Alexa. It sounded right in a way it shouldn't have. Outside, the city lights glowed through my window, and I realized something terrifying. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back. The next morning began with an almost unbearable tension. I woke to the sound of keys jingling in the hallway. Isabella's early arrival yesterday had already rattled me. Today, I felt like the walls themselves were watching. I sat up slowly, heart hammering. My box of secret clothes was still tucked under the bed, but now, each item seemed to pulse with danger. The skirt, the blouse, the heels, they weren't just fabric anymore. They were instruments of exposure, waiting to betray me at the first wrong glance. When Isabella peeked into the bedroom, humming softly, I froze. Her gaze lingered longer than usual. Morning. Sleepyhead. Big plans today. I forced a casual tone. Yeah. Just catching up on some emails. She nodded, but the faint frown on her forehead suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. She had begun noticing little things. The way I moved, the occasional slip of my voice. Nothing definite. Just fragments. And I knew if she started connecting the dots, my secret life could unravel faster than I could ever imagine. I spent the first hour pacing the apartment, mentally rehearsing every step of the day. Today, I had a real challenge. Going to a small office meeting in public while dressed in the feminine clothes required by the bet. My hands shook as I sorted through the outfits, finally settling on a fitted skirt, a soft blouse, and nude heels. Each piece pressed against me like a second skin. When I looked in the mirror, my reflection startled me. It wasn't a mask anymore. The person staring back had curves, a subtle sway in her stance, eyes that glittered with something I didn't recognize. Confidence, perhaps, or maybe fear masquerading as it. And then came the sound that made my stomach drop. The elevator. The building's lobby was empty. But not for long. A delivery man pushed a cart through the doors, humming, oblivious. My breath caught. He could see me like this. And what would he think? I waited until he passed, then bolted toward the stairs. Each step was a test. My heels clacking too loudly, my heart thudding in rhythm with them. By the time I hit the sidewalk, I felt like every eye was on me. I wasn't sure if it was paranoia or reality. The street was bustling. People moved with purpose, and I realized how much I had underestimated the fear of being seen. Every glance felt loaded, every passing smile a potential judgment. I tried to focus on the meeting, a small client presentation, but my body betrayed me. My hips swayed too naturally, my voice occasionally dipped into a higher tone, and I noticed how easily people were watching, noticing, analyzing. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone familiar. Alex. I froze. It was Josh, my coworker. Someone who never hesitated to tease. His brow arched, and for a moment, I thought he was going to laugh. My stomach churned. Did he see me? Did he recognize me? Hey, I said, my voice cracking slightly. Josh leaned closer, squinting. Are you okay? You look different. Different. The word echoed in my mind. That was it. That one word could unravel everything. I forced a small laugh. Yeah, just new look for the presentation, you know? He shrugged. Sure. If you say so. I kept walking, heart hammering, praying that curiosity wouldn't linger. But every step felt heavier, like gravity itself had changed. At the meeting, the stakes rose even higher. Clients arrived early, exchanging pleasantries, oblivious to the tension behind my eyes. I tried to focus on the slides, on the numbers, on anything that could anchor me. But my hands trembled as I clicked through them, and my voice wavered slightly when I answered questions. Isabella sat at the back, as she always did in our secret observation arrangement. Her eyes never left me. Every glance felt like scrutiny, every smile a test. I realized something terrifying. I was addicted to this. The risk, the exposure, the thrill of being seen without being fully known. It was intoxicating. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. "You did amazing. But you're nervous." I nodded, unable to deny it. "That's because it's scary," I admitted. Her fingers brushed my arm lightly. "Scary can be exciting too. Don't fight it." The words should have comforted me, but instead, they sent a shiver down my spine. Back at the apartment, I removed the outfit and collapsed onto the couch. My heels were scuffed, my makeup smudged, and my heart still raced. But as I stared at the reflection in the mirror, I saw it again. That familiar intoxicating feeling of someone else staring back. I realized something terrifying. The bet was supposed to be humiliating. A joke. But now it had started changing me. The thrill, the attention, the tiny glimpses of approval. It made me question everything. Who was Alex? And who was Alexa? The knock at the door startled me. My heart leapt. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the peephole. It was Josh. The knock at the door echoed through my apartment like a warning bell. My heart slammed against my ribs as I peeked through the peephole. Josh was standing there, arms crossed, smirking in that infuriatingly knowing way. I swallowed hard. What do you want?" I whispered under my breath, though I wasn't entirely sure if I was talking to him or to myself. "Hey, just wanted to return this," he said, holding up a folder I didn't recognize. "Dropped it yesterday. Thought you might need it." Relief surged for a moment, but the second I opened the door, my relief twisted into panic. The smell of his cologne, the casual way he leaned against the frame, the faint smirk, it all screamed danger. Every instinct screamed at me that my secret could be out in a heartbeat. "Thanks," I mumbled, trying to sound normal, though the words came out higher pitched than usual. My voice cracked, betraying me instantly. Josh's eyes narrowed. "You okay? You sound different." I forced a laugh, fingers twisting nervously in my skirt. "Just tired, long day." He tilted his head, still smirking. "I'm okay, if you say so." As soon as he left, I closed the door and leaned against it, trembling. The adrenaline coursing through my veins was like fire. Every second of the day had built to this, the first real threat of exposure. I sat on the couch, trying to calm myself. But nothing worked. My mind kept replaying every glance from earlier. Clients staring, co-workers whispering, Isabella's calculating gaze. The duality of my life was starting to suffocate me. Alex was slipping, and Alexa was creeping in, inch by inch. By evening, I couldn't sit still. I pulled out the box again. I needed to see her, the reflection that made me feel alive and terrified all at once. The lavender blouse, the pleated skirt, the stockings. I handled each piece reverently, like fragile glass. As I dressed, I noticed a subtle difference from my first attempts. My movements were smoother, more natural. The heels clicked against the floor with confidence I hadn't felt before. When I applied the makeup, I lingered over each stroke, noticing tiny details I'd never cared about. It was intoxicating, dangerous. And yet, beneath the thrill was panic. Every sound in the apartment, the refrigerator humming, the faucet dripping, the distant murmur of traffic, felt like a countdown to discovery. Then I heard it, a soft cough from the hallway. I froze. The apartment was empty. Wasn't it? "Alex." Isabella's voice, tentative but firm, sliced through the air. My blood ran cold. Hey," I said, voice cracking. She stepped into the room. Her eyes widened slightly, taking in the outfit, the heels, the subtle blush. For a second, she said nothing. Then she smiled, a slow, knowing smile that made my stomach twist. "So this is the new Alex? Or Alexa," she whispered. I couldn't move. My hands fidgeted with the skirt. The reflection in the mirror behind her caught my eye. Alexa's face staring back at me, pale and vulnerable, heart racing. "You've been exploring," Isabella continued, stepping closer. "And I wasn't supposed to see this. But now I have." I swallowed hard. I didn't mean for you to." She cut me off gently, but firmly. "It's fine. I want to understand. But you have to promise me one thing. No more surprises. Her presence was both comforting and terrifying. I felt the weight of her gaze like a scalpel, dissecting every secret, every thrill, every part of me that wanted to slip further into Alexa. I promise, I whispered, though a part of me knew it was already too late. The next day, the stakes escalated. I had to attend a small dinner with Isabella and a few close friends, all of them unaware of my transformation. The thought of facing them in heels, skirts, and makeup made my stomach churn. Every step out of the apartment felt like walking a tightrope above a pit of flames. I rehearsed my posture, my voice, my expressions. Each movement was calculated, each smile forced. But the moment we arrived, panic returned. One friend lingered near the doorway, eyeing me curiously. A compliment slipped, innocent, but heavy with implication. Wow! You look different tonight. My pulse jumped. My heart hammered in my chest. Was it admiration? Suspicion? I couldn't tell. Every word, every glance, every laugh felt like a test I had to pass without faltering. Isabella squeezed my hand under the table. Her touch was grounding, but also a reminder. She knew. She knew. And part of me thrilled at it. Another part trembled with fear. By the time we returned home, I was exhausted, physically and emotionally. I kicked off the heels, ripped off the wig, and stared at the reflection in the mirror. The face staring back wasn't entirely mine anymore. Alexa had embedded herself into my psyche. Every glance, every movement, every thought carried her weight. I knew the bet had started as a joke. But now, it was a chain I couldn't break. And the worst part? I was beginning to like it. The door clicked behind me. Isabella stepped in, her eyes soft but calculating. She held a small envelope in her hand. "Alex, or Alexa," she said, voice low, almost teasing. "There's a letter for you. But, you have to decide if you're ready to open it." My hands shook. My breath caught. My mind raced. The envelope sat on the counter, innocent and deadly. It promised revelation, consequences, maybe even exposure. And I knew, the moment I opened it, nothing would ever be the same. For a second, I wanted to run. But I couldn't. My legs refused. My reflection in the mirror called me forward. I reached for it. The envelope sat on the counter like a ticking bomb. My fingers hovered above it, trembling. Every instinct in my body screamed to leave it alone, to pretend it wasn't there, to shrink back into the safety of normalcy. But I knew that once curiosity took hold, there was no retreat. Isabella watched me silently, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with that dangerous mixture of amusement and expectation. She didn't have to say anything. Her presence alone felt like a test. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. I unfolded it with shaking hands. My eyes skimmed the words, and my stomach dropped. "Alex, we know about your little game. You think hiding behind skirts and heels makes you safe? Think again. Meet me tonight. Don't bring anyone else. Come alone. J." The initials hit me like a sledgehammer. Josh. It had to be him. Somehow he knew. Somehow. He had discovered the truth that I'd been hiding so carefully. My heart raced. I couldn't breathe. Images of yesterday, the hallway, his smirk, his questioning glance, all came rushing back. I had been seen. The veil of secrecy had been pierced. "We have to handle this," Isabella said calmly, stepping closer. "Do not go alone." "But maybe we let him see Alexa." I froze. Alexa. The name made my pulse spike. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw myself back into the comfort of Alex. But another part, the reckless part, thrilled at the idea. "You can't be serious," I whispered. "I am," she said, eyes gleaming. "You've been hiding this for weeks. It's time someone else sees it, and you survive." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Tonight. Tonight I had to face Josh, face someone who knew, and face Alexa fully. My stomach churned with fear and something else I couldn't name. Anticipation, maybe even excitement. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I couldn't concentrate. Every mirror, every reflective surface, every shadow seemed to mock me. What would Josh say? Would he laugh? Would he expose me? I practiced walking, sitting, speaking, Trying to perfect Alexa, trying to make her believable, trying to protect Alex while letting Alexa exist. It was a delicate balance. Every step, every gesture, every inflection could tip the scales. Finally, the evening came. The city was dark, wet from an afternoon drizzle. Street lights reflected off the pavement, turning it into a shimmering path that felt both dangerous and inviting. I put on the dress Isabella had chosen. A deep burgundy number that clung in all the right places, paired with black heels that added inches I didn't know I wanted. Makeup was precise, hair flawless. Alexa stared back at me from the mirror, confident and vulnerable at once. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to leap into unknown territory. The meeting place was a small, quiet cafe, the kind where people never expected drama. But tonight, it felt like the world had shrunk to that single corner booth where Josh would be waiting. I arrived early, hiding in the shadows. Every footstep sounded like an alarm. Every glance at my reflection in shop windows made me flinch. The thrill of danger coursed through me, but so did terror. I could be humiliated, exposed, and ridiculed in seconds. Then I saw him. Josh, leaning casually against the cafe's counter, coffee in hand. His eyes scanned the street, then locked on me. He smirked, that same infuriating smirk, and for the first time, I realized he wasn't laughing. Not yet. You came, he said simply. My lips parted. I tried to speak, but my voice wavered. Alexa's voice came out instead. Soft, deliberate, feminine. The sound startled me, but Josh didn't flinch. He tilted his head, examining me like a predator evaluating prey. Wow, he whispered. You actually went all in. I have no choice, I stammered. He took a slow step forward, and my knees nearly buckled. Everything in me screamed to flee, to strip away the dress, the heels, the makeup, to be Alex again. But Isabella's earlier words rang in my ears. You survive by being Alexa. I took a deep breath. Then see me. All of me. Josh's eyes glinted with curiosity and something darker. Challenge. All right, he said. But let's make this interesting. From his pocket, he pulled out his phone. A small camera app was open. The screen reflected my own image back at me, magnified and unflinching. Smile, he said casually. Or don't. Either way, I want to see if Alexa can handle the world. My chest tightened. The line between thrill and terror blurred. Every fiber of my being screamed that I could run, that I should. But another part, a secret, reckless part, wanted to prove something, to test Alexa fully, to see if she could survive judgment, exposure, and the most humiliating stakes imaginable. I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and let the heels click on the cafe floor. I was Alexa. Terrified, yes, but alive. Josh's grin widened. The camera clicked once, twice. I felt each shudder like a heartbeat, a warning, a pulse of life. Interesting, he said, finally lowering the phone. You're more convincing than I thought. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. Alexa wasn't just a mask anymore. She was real. And the night, the challenge, was only just beginning. The cafe felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Every breath I took seemed amplified, every sound exaggerated. Josh leaned back, eyes never leaving me, and I realized with a jolt, I was entirely exposed. Not a shred of Alex remained in the moment. Only Alexa, standing vulnerable and raw under his gaze. You know, Josh said slowly, swirling his coffee, I never thought someone could actually pull it off. Dressing up is one thing. But living it? That's another. I swallowed hard, my lips trembling. It's just a bet. It's nothing. He tilted his head, skeptical. Nothing? Really? Because the way you're standing, the way you're... You. It looks like it's more than that. My heart stuttered. He saw right through me, the dual life I'd tried so desperately to contain, the thrill and fear that had coiled inside me for weeks. Every secret, every trembling glance, every tiny thrill of being Alexa. He knew, even if he didn't yet have the words. I tried to look away, to shrink, but my heels betrayed me. A soft click echoed too loudly on the cafe's wooden floor, drawing the attention of a nearby couple. My stomach dropped. My reflection in the polished table mocked me. Lips slightly parted, eyes wide, trembling fingers gripping the edge. Relax, Josh said, leaning forward. Nobody's going to judge you. Well, except me. His tone was teasing, but the weight of it was heavier than any accusation. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a precipice. One misstep, and everything would fall apart. The minutes stretched into a tension-filled eternity. Josh asked questions, innocuous on the surface. Work stuff, weekend plans. But every glance he threw me, every subtle smirk, made my pulse race. He wasn't just testing me. He was probing, challenging, daring me to show who I really was. When he finally set his coffee down and leaned closer, my chest tightened. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" he said quietly, almost a whisper. I froze. The words cut deeper than I expected. My cheeks burned, not just from embarrassment, but from the truth. Yes, there was something thrilling about this, the attention, the danger, the transformation. I had tried to deny it to myself, to Isabella, even to Alex. But Alexa's existence was no longer just a bet. It had become an intoxicating, terrifying part of me. I don't know, I murmured, voice barely audible. Josh chuckled softly, eyes glinting. Sure you do. And you know what? I like that part of you. The part that's brave enough to face me like this. The words should have shattered me. Instead they made my pulse race. Fear mingled with a dangerous thrill. Part of me wanted to flee, to rip off the dress, the wig, the heels, and hide forever. Another part, the part that had been coaxed, pushed, and teased into existence, wanted to embrace it, to see just how far Alexa could go under scrutiny. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open, and a gust of cold air swept through the room. My heart jumped. A delivery man? Another customer? No. It was Isabella. She didn't say a word at first. She stood in the doorway, eyes scanning, observing. The sight of her made me freeze. She had always been a silent force in this game, a reminder of boundaries and expectations. And now, seeing her there, I realized that she had been watching everything. Every step, every misstep, every flutter of doubt in my eyes. Going well? She asked lightly, voice deceptively calm. I wanted to curl into myself. Josh's expression flickered. Amusement, surprise, curiosity. He hadn't expected her to appear. But Isabella didn't leave. Instead, she slid into the booth across from us, calm and poised. I think it's time we set some rules, she said. The bet isn't over. And Alex? Or Alexa, you're going to have to navigate both worlds carefully from now on. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words settle over me like a shroud. Both worlds. Alex in the safety of the known, Alexa in the dangerous, intoxicating reality. Josh leaned back, smirk widening. Looks like the fun's just beginning. The tension in the room escalated when Josh leaned in again, eyes sharp. You've got confidence. But let's see how you handle scrutiny, he said. I have friends who might be interested in seeing this. Seeing you. My blood ran cold. The thought of exposure, of people outside our circle discovering Alexa, was terrifying. My knees weakened. The cafe suddenly felt suffocating, every shadow, every reflection a threat. Isabella placed her hand over mine. Grounding, reassuring, and yet firm. Remember Alexa, she said softly. You survive by embracing her. Fear will destroy you faster than anyone else ever could. I nodded though my throat was tight. I had to survive. I had to play this carefully. Every glance, every movement, every word could tip the scales. And yet, beneath the terror, the thrill persisted. I was Alexa now, fully, dangerously, and there was no turning back. By the time we left the cafe, the city streets seemed darker, sharper, more dangerous. Every passerby, every light reflecting off wet pavement, seemed like a potential exposure. But I felt something new, a strange exhilaration, a pulse that whispered I could survive, that Alexa could exist in this world, fully seen and alive. Josh and Isabella fell behind me as I walked, their presence both protective and threatening. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying and thrilling. The bet had started as a joke, but it had become a crucible. One that would forge Alex into someone else, or break him entirely. The night wasn't over. The walk back to the apartment felt like a gauntlet. Every streetlight seemed to spotlight me, every passerby a potential witness to Alexa's existence. My heels clicked sharply against the wet pavement, echoing in rhythm with my pounding heart. The thrill and terror intertwined, coiling tighter with every step. Josh trailed behind, eyes gleaming with curiosity and subtle menace. Isabella stayed closer, calm yet commanding, her presence a reminder that I wasn't completely alone, but also that I was being tested. "You're handling this better than I expected," Josh said casually, though the underlying challenge in his tone was unmistakable. I forced a small laugh, keeping my gaze ahead. I have no choice." "True," he replied, smirk curling. "But sometimes, choice makes all the difference." The apartment door never looked so intimidating. As I unlocked it, I felt my pulse quicken. Inside, I kicked off the heels and sank onto the couch, trying to steady my trembling hands. Isabella and Josh followed, closing the door behind them with a soft click that sounded ominous in the silent room. Josh leaned casually against the counter, eyes sharp. "So, this is your lair, huh? Where Alex disappears and Alexa takes over." I froze, caught off guard by the precision of his words. How could he phrase it so perfectly? It was as if he knew more than I'd realized. Every hidden corner of the apartment suddenly felt like it held a secret he could uncover. "It's just a room," I muttered. "Nothing else." Josh laughed softly. "Nothing else? Come on. You've got outfits, makeup, accessories. It's like a shrine." "To her." I clenched my fists, a mix of embarrassment and panic surging through me. My secret world, the one place where Alexa existed, felt violated. Yet, strangely, the acknowledgement also thrilled me. Then Isabella stepped forward, holding up a small, sleek mirror. "It's time for the real test," she said calmly. "Look at yourself. Don't hide. Face Alexa fully." My stomach dropped. I had stared into mirrors countless times, but now it felt different. Josh's gaze was on me, sharp and unyielding, and Isabella's was soft yet unwavering. I couldn't retreat. I took a shaky breath and lifted the mirror. The reflection staring back was breathtaking. Alexa in all her fragile, defiant, vulnerable glory. The dress hugged the curves I had padded, the makeup softened my features, and the wig framed my face perfectly. But there was more: confidence, determination, and something I hadn't expected. Fear intertwined with exhilaration. "She's real," Josh whispered, almost to himself. I flinched. She's just me, part of me," I said, voice cracking. "Part of you," Isabella echoed softly. "That's stronger than you think. But everyone sees a reflection differently. Tonight, you'll see what that really means." Then came the unexpected. Josh reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone again, this time pressing record. "I want to see her interact," he said, eyes glinting. "Not just for me, for the world. Let's test if Alexa can survive scrutiny outside these walls." The words hit me like a hammer. Public exposure. Real scrutiny. My palms sweated, heart hammering. The idea of being seen, judged, possibly mocked. Terrifying. But underneath it all, a shiver of excitement ran through me. I don't know if I began, but Isabella cut me off. "You don't get a choice," she said gently, firmly. "You survive by embracing her. Fear will destroy you faster than anyone else ever could." I nodded reluctantly. There was no turning back. I was standing at the edge, and whether I jumped or fell, Alexa would emerge. We left the apartment again, this time under the glare of streetlights and distant city noise. Josh filmed from just a few steps behind, capturing every motion, every flicker of doubt in my eyes. Isabella walked beside me, a stabilizing presence and a constant reminder that I was being tested, challenged, and observed. The world outside the apartment felt sharper, more dangerous. Every passerby, every glance, every small whisper of movement was a potential threat. My heartbeat thudded in rhythm with the heels clicking against the pavement, each step a test of courage and composure. "You're doing well," Josh whispered behind me. "But let's see if Alexa can handle more than just the streets. There are eyes everywhere. And soon, one of them will be the wrong one." I swallowed hard. I had no idea what he meant. Or maybe I did. Exposure, judgment, scrutiny. Every worst-case scenario played out in my mind, each more horrifying than the last. Yet part of me, the part that had relished the thrill, the transformation, the risk, couldn't help but lean into it. The night was far from over. And I knew, deep down, that the moment Alexa fully stepped into the world, there would be no going back. The city lights blurred as we walked, rain-slick streets reflecting my trembling reflection in every puddle. Every step felt like a countdown to disaster. Josh's camera phone was never far behind, capturing each movement with a predator's precision, while Isabella's calm, knowing presence both anchored and terrified me. I tried to keep my stride steady, to embody Alexa completely. The heels clicked with deliberate rhythm, skirts swaying with calculated poise. But inside, my heart thudded in panic, each beat reminding me how close I was to being unmasked. "Relax," Josh murmured behind me. "You're doing fine. But let's test the limits." Limits. The word echoed in my mind. Exposure was no longer hypothetical. Every stranger on the street, every passerby in the neon haze, could recognize me, judge me, or worse, record me. We entered a small, dimly lit cafe, the kind that encouraged whispers, casual glances, and close proximity. Josh had insisted on this venue, claiming it would be a test of poise under scrutiny. I realized immediately why. The tables were cramped, conversations intimate, and every patron's gaze could land on me at any moment. Isabella guided me to a corner table, but the entire room felt like a stage. I could feel the sweat on my palms, my chest rising and falling rapidly. My reflection in the polished wood of the table showed Alexa's wide eyes staring back at me. Fear and exhilaration intertwined. "You've got this," Isabella whispered. Her hand brushed mine, grounding me, yet the weight of her gaze reminded me I was under judgment. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. But no amount of reassurance could erase the tension curling in my stomach. Josh's voice cut through the din. "Okay, let's see how she handles attention." Immediately, a small group near our table turned, curious at the subtle but undeniable aura of confidence and vulnerability Alexa projected. Every glance from strangers felt like a probe, every whispered comment a potential exposure. I tried to smile to respond naturally, but my voice cracked slightly. One of the women near our table tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly, and I felt my stomach twist. Did she know? Could she tell? "It's okay," Isabella whispered. "Breathe. Embrace her." I took a deep breath, attempting to let Alexa fully inhabit me. I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and spoke with deliberate calm, though my inner panic flared like wildfire. "Just ordering coffee," I said lightly, hoping it sounded casual. The group exchanged glances. One of them smirked subtly. The feeling of scrutiny was nearly unbearable. I felt exposed, vulnerable, as if the world could peer straight through my carefully constructed persona. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut across the cafe. "Alex!" I froze. A young man, unmistakably familiar, had entered, a former colleague I hadn't expected to see. My heart plummeted. Exposure in front of strangers, in front of Josh, Isabella, everyone. It was a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. I tried to retreat into the shadow of the corner, heels clicking too loudly as I shifted. Alexa's calm exterior wavered, replaced by a raw, panicked version of Alex desperate to hide. Josh leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Stay in character," he whispered. "Now is the moment." The young man approached cautiously. "Alex, is that you?" I felt every muscle in my body tense. My hands gripped the table edge, nails digging into wood. My heart raced, every instinct screaming to flee, rip off the outfit, shed the persona. But Isabella's gentle yet firm hand steadied me. "Breathe. Alexa is real. You survive as her." Summoning every ounce of courage, I lifted my chin, let a small, controlled smile grace my lips, and spoke in Alexa's voice. "Hi. Yes, it's me." The man's eyes widened, hesitating between recognition and disbelief. The moment stretched unbearably, every heartbeat magnified in the silent tension. "Wow, you look different," he said finally, astonishment in his tone. A flood of conflicting emotions surged through me. Fear, shame, thrill, exhilaration. Every second felt like a test, every glance a potential betrayal. But something deeper stirred, pride. Alexa had survived scrutiny. Alex would never have endured this without faltering. Then came the unthinkable. As the man leaned in, whispering a question I couldn't quite catch, his hand brushed against my shoulder. A subtle slip of the dress, a twitch of the wig, and my worst fear materialized. A small piece of wig lace lifted, revealing the edge of the disguise. Time froze. Josh's eyes widened, Isabella tensed, and my heart stopped. Exposure was imminent. Every instinct screamed to flee, to rip off the disguise, to collapse into safety. Yet somehow, I forced myself to remain, to hold Alexa steady. "It's all good," I whispered quickly, adjusting the wig with trembling fingers, hoping the gesture seemed natural. The young man blinked, seemingly convinced. He nodded, murmuring something about being impressed, and walked away. My breath came in ragged gasps. "You see," Isabella whispered softly, eyes glinting. "Alexa survives. Fear cannot control her." I sank into my seat, trembling. Relief, terror, and exhilaration collided. The thrill of surviving the near disaster, combined with the knowledge that my secret was nearly exposed, sent adrenaline surging through me. I realized for the first time that Alexa wasn't just a persona. She was a survival mechanism, a thrilling escape, and a part of me that demanded to exist. By the time we left the cafe, the street seemed simultaneously safer and more dangerous. Every glance from passers-by, every reflection in a puddle or window, reminded me of the fragility of my secret life. Alexa had survived the ultimate test: public scrutiny, near exposure, and raw emotional vulnerability. Yet deep down, I knew the real challenge was only beginning. The boundaries between Alex and Alexa had blurred irrevocably. And the night wasn't over. The walk home from the cafe was eerily silent. The city around us buzzed with distant traffic and flickering neon lights, but inside me, chaos roared. Alexa's heels clicked against the wet pavement, each step a drumbeat of fear and exhilaration. Every nerve screamed that exposure was close, that a single misstep could undo weeks of careful deception. Josh walked behind me, camera ready, his presence an ever-present reminder of the danger I now lived in. Isabella was beside me, calm, calculating, and unyielding, a tether to reality, yet a challenge in disguise. "You did well tonight," Isabella murmured softly. "But the final test is coming. Are you ready?" I swallowed hard. My throat was dry, my palms trembling. Ready? I didn't know if I could survive whatever awaited. But there was no turning back now. Alexa was no longer a mask. She was alive, breathing, pulsing with an intensity one hadn't expected. We arrived at the apartment, but the atmosphere had shifted. The shadows in the hallway felt darker, heavier, as if the walls themselves were waiting to judge me. I kicked off the heels and sank onto the couch, trying to steady my racing heart. Josh leaned against the counter, smirking. "Not bad for your first real outing. But tonight, we're going to see just how far Alexa can go." I froze. My stomach twisted. Another test? Another exposure? What do you mean? I whispered, voice cracking. "We're not just playing in the shadows anymore," Josh said, eyes gleaming. "You're going to perform. Publicly. Live. And if you falter, well, let's just see what happens." Isabella stepped closer, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. "Fear will break you if you let it. Embrace her. Alexa is stronger than you think. But now, she has to face the ultimate challenge." The moment arrived sooner than I expected. Josh led me to a small rooftop gathering, just a handful of people, friends of friends, innocuous enough to seem casual, yet the stakes were terrifying. Every person there could recognize me, judge me, or worse, reveal me. I looked down at the dress, the stockings, the carefully applied makeup. Alexa stared back at me in the mirror Josh handed me. The reflection was confident, poised, alive. And yet beneath it all, I felt Alex's panic simmering, threatening to erupt. "You survive by being her," Isabella whispered again. I took a deep breath, feeling the chill of the night air against my exposed arms. The city lights sparkled around us, but I was trapped in a singular focus: survive. The small group greeted us warmly, yet each smile, each glance carried weight. The subtle judgment, the unspoken curiosity, it pressed against me like a physical force. I moved, spoke, laughed. All as Alexa. Each motion was deliberate, precise, yet trembling with the fear of exposure. Josh filmed, capturing every step, every glance, every flicker of vulnerability. My chest ached with tension. I felt like a tightrope walker over a pit of fire. One slip and everything would burn. "Look at her," Josh murmured under his breath. "She's thriving. But will she survive when the real test comes?" I didn't know what he meant, but instinct told me the night was far from over. Then it happened. A familiar voice called my name. A neighbor, one I hadn't seen in months, had spotted me. Panic surged through me like electricity. My legs threatened to buckle. My hands shook violently as I adjusted the dress and wig, trying desperately to maintain composure. "Hi, it's me," I said in Alexa's voice, trembling but steadying with every word. The neighbor's eyes widened. Recognition flickered. Whispered murmurs began. My heart raced. Exposure was imminent. Josh stepped forward, subtly blocking the view, whispering, "You're fine. Alexa survives." Isabella's hand tightened on mine. "Trust her. Trust Alexa." I nodded, swallowing the terror. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet another part, the part that had lived, breathed and thrived as Alexa, surged forward. I smiled, laughed lightly, answered questions with poise. The adrenaline burned like fire, yet I held firm. By the time the night ended, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. Alexa wasn't just a disguise. She was real. She had survived scrutiny, judgment, and near exposure. My secret had been pushed to the brink, yet here I was, standing, trembling, alive. Josh lowered the camera, eyes glinting. "Impressive. I didn't think you could do it." Isabella leaned close. "You see? Fear isn't your enemy. Alexa is. And Alex. He's learning to coexist with her." I sank onto a rooftop ledge, looking out over the city. The wind whipped my hair, and my heart finally slowed slightly. I was terrified, exhilarated, and irrevocably changed. "Tonight. I survived," I whispered to the night. But deep down, I knew the real challenge had only begun. Alexa was no longer just a game, a bet, or a thrill. She was part of me, and the world was about to see her fully. The night stretched endlessly before us, city lights shimmering like a promise and a warning. And I realized, with a shiver of fear and thrill, that there was no turning back. Alexa had emerged, and Alex would never be the same. The city stretched beneath me, a sprawling network of lights and shadows. I sat on the apartment rooftop, legs dangling over the edge, heels tucked neatly beneath me. My hands trembled slightly. Exhaustion, adrenaline, and the emotional roller coaster of the night all converging in one overwhelming wave. Alexa had survived. I had survived. Every judgmental glance, every whisper, every near exposure. I had weathered it. And yet, as the wind whipped around me, I realized something terrifying. Survival didn't mean safety. "You did well tonight," Isabella said softly, appearing at my side. Her presence was both reassuring and intimidating. "But this is only the beginning." I swallowed hard. "Beginning of what?" My voice trembled, betraying the uncertainty curling deep in my chest. "Of Alexa's life," she replied, voice calm, yet carrying weight. "And of yours." Her words hung in the air, heavier than the night. I realized with a shiver that Alex, the version of me I had clung to, hidden behind the persona of Alexa, was no longer fully in control. Alexa had taken root, entwined with every fear, thrill, and secret I had. She was alive. She demanded to exist. And the world would see her, whether I wanted it to or not. A sudden ping from Josh's phone broke my reverie. He had recorded the entire night, every interaction, every close call, every flicker of panic and courage. The thought made my stomach turn. What would he do with it? Share it? Show it to someone? Keep it as a threat, a leverage point? I glanced at him. His smirk was unreadable. "Relax," he said casually. "The footage is interesting. But that's not for tonight. We'll see how it unfolds." I didn't relax. Every nerve in my body screamed that danger was never far, that exposure could happen at any moment. And yet, beneath that terror, there was a flicker of something else. Excitement, adrenaline, and a perverse thrill at how far I had come. Alexa had survived scrutiny, judgment, and the world outside my apartment. And maybe, just maybe, she could thrive. As I leaned back, trying to catch my breath, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "I saw you tonight. Very convincing. But can Alexa handle the next level?" My hands froze, the phone nearly slipping from my grasp. Another threat? A challenge? Someone else had seen me. The night's suspense wasn't over. It had only deepened. My pulse raced, mind spinning with possibilities. Who was watching? Were they friends? Enemies? Someone curious? Or someone dangerous? Isabella noticed the text, her eyes narrowing. Looks like the game is escalating, she murmured. And Alex? Or Alexa, you'll have to rise to it. I don't know if I can, I whispered, voice small and trembling. Yes, you can, she said firmly, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. Alexa is strong. She's brave. And tonight proved it. But the world outside doesn't forgive hesitation. The wind tugged at my hair, the city lights blurred in the distance, and I realized the terrifying truth. There was no turning back. Alexa was not a temporary disguise, a bet, or a thrill. She was part of me, and now the world would challenge her at every step. A sudden noise from the street below made me flinch. Footsteps. A shadow. My breath caught in my throat. Was it just a passerby, or someone who knew? Someone watching? Josh's camera had captured everything tonight. Isabella's silent gaze reminded me she had orchestrated part of this test. And the unknown text hinted at threats I couldn't yet predict. I wrapped my arms around my knees, staring down into the city. The lights sparkled like a web of possibilities. Some thrilling, some terrifying. My mind raced with questions. Could I navigate this new life fully as Alexa? Could I protect Alex while letting Alexa exist? What would happen when the world discovered her, and me, fully? The heels I had left by the rooftop reminded me that every step I took as Alexa was both a triumph and a risk. Each click of those heels was a heartbeat in this delicate balancing act. Tonight, we survived, I whispered to the wind. But tomorrow, who knows? Isabella's voice came softly, almost a whisper over the city hum. Tomorrow, the real challenge begins. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Nothing would ever be the same. Alexa had emerged from the shadows, alive and uncontainable. And the world, unknown, judgmental and thrilling, was waiting. The camera in Josh's hand glinted briefly in the rooftop light. A silent reminder that nothing was hidden, nothing was secure, and everything could change in an instant. My heart pounded as I looked over the city. I was terrified. I was exhilarated. And I was completely, irreversibly, caught between Alex and Alexa. The night ended, but the story was far from over.